Hello everyone, this is NJ Arts, and today we'll be doing my manga review of Jujutsu Kaisen, the Junpei arc. As with all of my reviews, I'll go over the story and art, and then give my final ranking. I'll also be doing some drawings related to the arc in the background, so if you like those and want to see more, subscribe to the channel and check out my socials in the link below. Now, let's get into it. To start things off, we have the reintroduction to who we think at this point is Geto, which raises a bunch of questions for first-time readers who read Zero. And we also get introduced to the disaster curses. Gege did a great job with the design of these guys, and this sequence of Jogo burning up this restaurant does well to show the threat they pose. I also find it interesting that Jogo seems a lot more childish initially, juxtaposed to Mahito in his introduction, who seems a bit more mature. I wonder if it was unintentional, since those personality traits kind of switch, or maybe Gege just had different plans for the characters initially. We also get reintroduced to Panda, Maki, and Inumaki, but they won't have much to do until the next arc. Oh, and it's also funny that they repeated this same joke of not explaining what Panda is from Zero. Moving on to the next section is possibly one of the most important moments of the series, that being Yuji's revival. Not only is this the return of the main character, but the conditions for his return is a huge Chekhov's gun that adds suspense to pretty much the whole series. Sukuna being able to take over whenever he wants and Yuji not knowing is such a great plot point, and really gets the reader thinking about when it'll happen and what Sukuna plans to do within that minute. Especially since he can't harm anyone either. But it's Sukuna, so you know he probably doesn't have good intentions, and no matter what it is, that moment will definitely be huge. After Yuji's revival, Gojo sets up his training for Yuji, which I think was explained nicely and succinctly. Not only adding another bullet in that Chekhov's gun for Yuji eventually learning Sukuna's techniques, but it also explains that while other factors go into it, talent as a sorcerer is all about luck. Getting stuck with a bad technique or bad curse energy kinda just decides it for you, as we'll see with some characters. And that makes those with lackluster techniques, yet very skilled sorcerers, really stand out for how innovative they are despite being dealt a really bad hand. I also like how learning to control curse energy was done through watching movies. I think that was a pretty fun concept. And I also wanted to mention this moment of Gojo while Yuji was believed to be dead. It's nice to see that he genuinely cares about his students despite his carefree attitude. And we see genuine rage that's kind of scary, actually, when he suggests that he should just kill all the higher-ups, since they purposely sent Yuji to die. Next up, we have Gojo versus Jogo, and the beginning of Jogo's many mistakes in this series. But this does feel like the first real fight of Jujutsu Kaisen, even though Jogo gets absolutely dog-walked, and it's also our first time seeing Gojo in real action. We learn about Gojo's technique, which is really cool and unique. The idea of infinity and Gojo literally being untouchable is a great way to immediately show us that, yeah, this guy is a little different. But then he proceeds to outclass Jogo in literally every single way. Like, it wouldn't even matter if Jogo could land a hit on Gojo, he simply just couldn't handle any of that. Something I think is funny here is that Gege shows off Gojo's reverse curse technique with no explanation. It's our first time seeing reverse curse technique as a concept, and Gege just drops it and moves on with no elaboration. It's a funny thing to do, but I also appreciate that Gege doesn't always just fully explain everything outright. Anyway, after putting the belt on Jogo, Gojo just leaves mid-fight to grab Yuji, crazy, and then uses this special grade disaster curse spirit, one of the strongest enemies we have right now, stronger than current Sukuna, as a learning opportunity for Yuji, also crazy. That's just so disrespectful, and I fully understand Jogo losing it here. Gojo's like a grade A rage baiter. So with that, Jogo uses his domain, and we get a full explanation to domain expansion, another really cool aspect of sorcery. I really appreciate that it makes this interesting mechanic of guarantee hits, as opposed to just being a power boost to the sorcerer. It really adds a new layer to these higher levels of combat, and it serves as great hype moments as well, every time a domain is brought out. And that's a great segue into Gojo's domain. Not only do we get to see Gojo's domain, which is, yeah, really cool, but we also get to see him without his blindfold for the first time if you haven't read Zero. And yeah, seeing his face, I get it. But jokes aside, this is a great moment, and the panel and the effect of Infinite Void is just so cool. Gege really knocked it out of the park with just about every aspect of Gojo's character and his abilities. After Gojo gives Jogo a really bad haircut, Hanami steps in to save him, and this moment of Yuji saying that he's fine and then immediately asking for help is really funny. But we also get some build up for Hanami as well, with Gojo dropping this line about it being creepier than Jogo is, which just feels more imposing than just saying it's outright stronger, even though Jogo probably is stronger than Hanami. With that fight concluded, we have the introduction to the GOAT, Todo. This guy is one of those characters who mostly everyone just loves, myself included. And with that being said, his introduction, he comes off as kind of gross and like a total jerk, which is actually kind of how he is to most people, but we as the audience still love him anyways. His line about who is your favorite type is so iconic, and the way he's drawn is so ridiculous and perfect. Also, it's very inclusive for him to tell Megumi it's okay if he prefers men to women. That's good job, Toto. And I guess Mai's there too. Unfortunately, Mai never has much interest to me other than being Maki's sister. Her characterization is a nice juxtaposition to Maki, but again, the most interesting about her is just in comparison to her better written other half. This scene of Nobara sneaking up on Mai is really funny though. And the little scuffle that Toto and Megumi have does well to set up Toto for the future exchange event. But other than that, there's nothing much to really say about this scene. It's just mostly to show the other students from Kyoto and Toto. And then after that, we have the conversation with Gojo and the principal of Kyoto, Gakuganji. Gojo mentions about this new era of power and the balance shifting. It's really interesting, and it's also interesting to see that Toto is included. Toto sits in this weird area of like high grade 1, but I don't see him as more than that. I'm really curious if Gege had different plans for him initially, because he puts him in the same group as Yuta, who might just outclass him. Now, with all that stuff out of the way, we can get into the real meat of this section, that being the Junpei arc. To start off, I really like these reports that set the stage for the curse we're dealing with. They're ominous and just set the tone really well, and this scene in the theater does really well to set up Mahito too. Like, what he did to these kids is just straight up horrifying. After that though, we get the introduction to another goat, that being Nanami. Now, fun fact is Gege initially planned for Nanami to fill the role of Higuruma, being a corrupt salaryman in the Culling game, and I can kind of feel that with these first few lines he says. It does feel very Higuruma-esque. Nanami as a character though does have a fun personality. His very serious and straightforward demeanor contrasts well with Itadori and Gojo, and he's pretty unique among the cast so far. A lot of the things he says just feel so real too, like his line about work being trash, and what makes you an adult. It's all very relatable stuff for us old heads. This small battle Nanami and Yuji have against the transfigured humans does well to show off what Yuji has learned so far, as well as Nanami's technique, another cool technique, although it's quite simple in practice. And the aspect of revealing your technique to make it stronger adds another fun layer to the power system, and gives a way for Gege to give exposition while having it be natural. Next up, we have Mahito's meeting with Junpei, and everything about their interaction is just so manipulative. Junpei is a really vulnerable kid, and Mahito takes full advantage of it. From the moment they meet, Mahito really just had Junpei in the palm of his hand. Mahito's words here are also just really gross to me, and given my opposition to those beliefs and seeing what he's already done, it's really easy to see Mahito as a truly abhorrent creature, like he's already being set up as a great villain. It's also just a shame that Junpei wasn't able to really see the manipulation and evil intent behind what Mahito is saying because of his bullying, but that is the very thing that made him a target. With this next section, we get Mahito versus Nanami, which is alright. Honestly, on a reread, this battle is a bit underwhelming, and that might be because I also watched the anime, and this battle's coolest moment of this big ratio does not hit as hard as in the manga, unfortunately. The fight itself also almost feels unnecessary, but we do get more insight into Mahito's character and technique, and he only continues shaping up to be a great antagonist, and it also kind of sets up this rapport with Nanami and Mahito. While all this happens, Yuji meets with Junpei, but before that, we have this interaction with Junpei and his teacher. And look, I understand Junpei's suffering, but his anger towards his teacher feels a little naive, and this line about not experiencing the real world is really ironic given his own experience as well as what's literally happening to him right now. But Junpei is a very tragic character, and it's because of what's happened to him at school that he has such negative views of the world, which is really sad given that this stuff really does happen to people in real life too. And his teacher also does deserve some blame for not fully understanding the situation and kind of turning a blind eye to what's happening, so it's not like some of Junpei's thoughts are completely unjustified. But after all that negativity, we get some positivity, with Yuji and Junpei officially meeting. These two are really wholesome together, and they bounce off so well with each other. Yuji's just genuinely such a good guy, and it's easy for him to connect with just about anyone, and it comes through here really well. We also meet Junpei's mom shortly after. She seems weirdly wise, but also really irresponsible. Like, Junpei's still a kid, and should probably have more guidance and structure, but this line she has about being in school or not is a pretty convincing argument. And all that to say, she generally seems well-intentioned, and the dinner with her and Yuji was really sweet as well. I remember my first time watching, I was genuinely blindsided by the incoming disaster. The vibes were just too good. And the disaster comes almost immediately, just another example of that Gege pacing, but it does show how quickly things can change and everything can go wrong, with Junpei's mom literally dying that night after Yuji leaves. And this moment is even more tragic considering that Junpei could have genuinely begun to heal with the connection that he made with Yuji, but then this had to happen. And again, this moment of Mahito egging him on and gaslighting him really just shows how manipulative and evil he is. It's really nasty work. And this leads into the school scene, which is very effective in showing its obvious allegory to real-world incidents like this. This arc is overall just so well written and effective in showing how bullying and manipulation can cause confusion in impressionable kids, and them being pushed to the edge causes real tragedies like this to happen. I really appreciate how Gege went about handling this topic and how it shines a light on these real issues. All this also makes Yuji's plea to Junpei feel all the more desperate as he tries to save someone who he sees real good in and made a connection with before he does something that would be really unforgivable. The battle of Yuji and Junpei also has real stakes behind it, despite not having a huge emphasis on choreography or the physical fight itself. For the first time in the series, it's a battle that has real emotion, and its conclusion of Yuji dropping his defenses and taking that hit, thus kind of snapping Junpei out of it, really goes to show Yuji's genuine care for Junpei, and how Junpei has real care for Yuji as well. Quite possibly the only person he has left. It seems like things could be better, and Junpei could still have a future. And then, this guy shows up. Now, this might sound really bad, but I couldn't help but smile for this whole sequence. Part of that is because I knew it was coming, and it's very sad and tragic, but like I said, I like to see a villain who is just unapologetically evil, and the glee of Mahito as he revels in these heinous acts adds so much more to how twisted he is. This realization Junpei has about Mahito right when it's already too late, and Mahito's words to Junpei are just so perfect and building up the dread and tension of this scene, leading to this page turn that looks way more horrifying in manga format as we're just stuck with this image of Junpei mid-transformation. It really sells how messed up the process of idol transfiguration is, and the look on Yuji's face perfectly shows the shock we all probably had on our first viewing of this scene. Like, really, my first viewing of this was through the anime, and I, like most others, got totally baited by that image from the OP. I literally had to look it up to believe that Junpei actually died here. This leads to Yuji pleading with Sukuna to save Junpei, and Sukuna refusing, even if it is because he couldn't do anything, was still just such a perfect way to torment Yuji even further. It really makes it feel as though Sukuna has all the power over Yuji despite being the one in the cage. And it leads to the best double spread of the series so far, just Sukuna and Mahito laughing at Yuji. This imagery is utterly perfect, and everything about this sequence is executed perfectly. And it's topped off by one of the best lines of the whole series, when Yuji has finally had enough and declares his intent to kill Mahito. He states that the words that came out of his mouth came from a place so deep within him that everything he'd ever said had felt like a lie. I mean, that with this drawing, I have absolutely no notes. Well, except for one, which is the line's a little different in the manga, so I just used the anime one, which is a lot better. And with that, we have Yuji versus Mahito, and eventually Nanami and Yuji versus Mahito, which is the perfect finale for this arc. It's the longest battle in JJK up to this point, and feels like a big stepping stone for the growth of the series. The choreography has leveled up a bit, and Gege is able to do some really creative things with Mahito's ability, even though he's still only scratching the surface of it. I also really love the brutality of this fight. Yuji's displaying a rage we haven't seen before, and you can feel it with every strike. Even in moments like this, where his hands get stabbed, he doesn't falter and drags Mahito down to continue the beating. Also, I gotta shout out my goat for effectively being immune to Mahito's technique through just pure aura. This battle is great overall, and it all builds up to Mahito's domain, and, like, first of all, this hand sign's crazy, but it goes without saying that Mahito's domain is sick. And after what just happened to Junpei, we have all the reason to believe that this could also be it for Nanami. Gege really likes to make us suffer. And especially with this sudden backstory, like it's the biggest death flag in any manga. Now, despite taking a pause from the action, I really enjoyed Nanami's backstory, and this new theme that it brings to his character. A theme Gege actually kind of dives into a few times, especially with this other groomer who we'll eventually discuss. And that theme is how destructive the pursuit of money can be. And this theme can be brought into things beyond money. I think maybe a better way to put it is maybe this like loss of humanity in the pursuit of nothing else but more worldly desires. See, Nanami believed his life to have no meaning other than the pursuit of money. It didn't matter what he did or what happened to him as long as he made money. Even if he tried to tell himself that, we can see that those things just weren't true. He was losing his soul in the pursuit of nothing else but this goal. He was worn out, tired, and began questioning why his job that had no purpose other than making rich people richer had a higher status than someone like a baker who had more of a function in society. It's at this point in his life that Nanami lacked true purpose for himself. Making money isn't enough for him, and it's only when he feels like he's made a real difference and helped another person does he find what he's been missing all this time. He values the gratitude of others and helping others. At his core, Nanami deeply cares for others, and that's why when he thinks his time is up, he can say that he has no regrets dying as a sorcerer, despite never reaching that goal of acquiring all the money he needed. Because he found real fulfillment beyond that. Now, all this isn't to say that there's no value in pursuing things like money or anything else you want in this world, and maybe for some that really is enough. But even so, I believe there needs to be more of a balance in one's life, and that those things can't fulfill everything a person might need. And I think Gege is also trying to tell us this through Nanami, that community, doing good, helping others, and real connection holds just as much value in our lives, if not more, than things like money and other possessions. I've really come to enjoy Nanami a lot more on this reread. He's a surprisingly deep and fascinating character, while being very entertaining and charismatic in his own way. It's really easy to see how he became such a fan favorite, and while his story could have ended here with a solid conclusion, I'm so happy that he gets to stick around a bit longer. And I'm also very happy that it's once again time for the real GOAT of Jujutsu Kaisen to shine, Sukuna. Remember earlier how Sukuna completely just shut down Mahito's technique? Yeah, now he does it while in his domain. Sukuna only has like 3 fingers at this point, so this feat is not only terrifying to think about, but also continues to add way more presence and build up to what a true force of nature Sukuna is. After Mahito gets humbled, Yuji goes in for a killing blow, but as we'll learn, Mahito's greatest strength is running away, as he manages to evade Yuji and Nanami, and with that, Yuji passes out due to being a human pincushion, and the battle concludes. Before the arc closes out, we get Mahito plotting his next move, and we can only be worried for Yuji's future, because suffering builds character, right guys? And we get good reflection on the events that happened with Nanami and Yuji's conversation. And this moment is actually quite sad, where Nanami acknowledges Yuji as a sorcerer because of what he's been through. It sort of signals not only this deep change in Yuji due to the loss of Junpei, but it also signals that Yuji has lost a part of himself through killing the transfigured humans, something he tried to avoid doing. And Yuji's plenty strong and has a strong will, but that act took away some innocence from him that will never come back, and this facial expression he gives during this moment is just heartbreaking. We also get good closure on Junpei's school, which Gege didn't need to do, but I'm glad he did. Like I said, he handled the themes of this arc perfectly, and showing how this event affected random kids at the school and forced Junpei's bullies and those who turned a blind eye to take accountability was a solid way to close out the arc. Now, there are so many great moments to choose from for my favorite moment of this section, but I think hands down it has to go to Junpei's death and then the mocking of Yuji from Sukuna and Mahito. As I said before, it's just executed so well, and the shock of Junpei actually dying hits really hard. It's easily the best scene of the arc. Gotta give a shout out to the following battle as well for how satisfying it is in closing out the arc, and for being the best fight Gege has made up until now. Learning more about domains and the power system as a whole was a great plus as well, and it can be really cool to start to see how creative Gege can get with these techniques. If I had to pick something I disliked though, it would probably be that fight with Nanami and Mahito. As I said, I found it a little boring and wish there could have been more of an interesting encounter for Mahito and Nanami to have before their fight at the school. Now, with all the story stuff being done, let's get into the art. The art here is pretty similar to the beginning, as Gege is still developing his style for JJK, but we're starting to see some great double spreads and a bit more interesting choreography. Whenever Gege does domains, he always pops off. Coffin of the Iron Mountain, Unlimited Void, and Self-Embodiment of Perfection are all great pages, showing off the domains and conveying how they really are the ultimate techniques for each of their characters, respectively. I also gotta mention the facial expressions too. Jogo, Mahito, Yuji, Junpei, every emotion Gege was trying to express in them is shown perfectly. I like this page of Mahito. It's like super creepy, but conveys how much joy he's getting as he grows and develops his technique. And also it's just a cool looking image. I think, however, I made it pretty clear that my favorite pages came from Junpei's death and the events that followed. Every emotion from Yuji, Mahito, and Sukuna is on point, and this double spread is nuts. Like, Sukuna and Mahito dwarf Yuji in the page, making him seem so small and powerless as the two laugh at him endlessly. These scratchy marks distorting their mouths to not only show the craziness behind their laughter, but also just to twist their appearance even further to make them look more monstrous is great. And then this next page, the sharp black used to cover Yuji's face shows his anger perfectly and really makes him look like a monster of his own. It's also reminiscent of this moment in Hunter x Hunter where Gon gets really angry. I know Gege is a huge fan of Togashi and Hunter x Hunter, so I can't imagine this not being inspiration behind this. Another moment I liked was this page of Mahito being cut by Sukuna. I like how he has all the focus, and overall it's just a really nice drawing. Also, Junpei's Shikigami Moondregs has a great design, and it was really cool to see while Junpei used it. If I had to critique anything art-wise, aside from still not being Gege at his best in my opinion, I'd say some early iterations of characters like Mahito and Jogo, and even Todo a bit, need a little bit more work here. And sometimes these high-speed, high-impact moments in the choreography get a little bit too messy, but it's still really readable. Overall, this section of the story is solid, and it's what solidified Jujutsu Kaisen for me as a series that I really liked during my first watch-through. It's got emotion, action, just really solid stuff all around from Gege. I'm giving it an A. Thank you all for watching to the end. If you want to see more of my art, check out my socials below, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video where I'll review the Kyoto Sister Exchange event Part 1. I'll see you all next time.